So, our classical style of music, again, big C classical, meaning the classical era. What does this actually mean? Well, high quality art was put forward solely for the purpose to entertain. Again, this was music composed to make people enjoy it. And in other terms, it was absolute music, music for music's sake. It was not for a ceremony, not for background music, not for worship, not even to tell a story. It was music without a practical use. It was music because it was music. And this is a gigantic shift in the classical era. In the classical era, we also have the coming of age of instrumental music. So, thinkers and philosophers of the time are beginning to recognize the parallels between language and music. And we even still use those same metaphors today to talk about things like cadences, which are the punctuation or the sentence, the end of a sentence, to a line of music. In the Enlightenment era, classical music was revered as a model for civility in discourse. And again, it was expected to please rather than express, impress, or instruct. And I'm curious for you to think about the music of today, in your 2020s. What music is produced and or written to please, and what music is written or produced to make you think? And is there a difference in popularity, and why? The characteristics of the era: balanced phrases, heavy use of form. And when I say form, it's essentially a template of how to write music, and we'll get into that as we talk about form in the classical era. The melodies were simple. The prevailing texture was homophonic, so you had a melody line with an accompaniment. In the opera plots were much more realistic. They were based on real life situations, which could get you in trouble if you started to talk about the monarchy. Again, we'll speak about that a little later. I'll let you watch this on your own. And I'd like you to compare and contrast these two piano pieces by Bach and Mozart. They're both in the same key, they're both in C minor, they're both a piano, but they are very different. And I want you to consider how these pieces are different and how they might embody the styles and philosophies of their particular times. So to reiterate, with the new economy in the classical era, the Industrial Revolution, with that technology increased economic production, so cities grew even more, the middle class grew even more, so again, there's a demand for culture. Remember, we don't have TV, phones, the internet. Your entertainment is coming from going out or reading a novel. So public theaters and concert halls were extremely popular. And composers like Haydn and Mozart succeeded outside of the church and royal courts to compose music and operas and whatever else for the people who were yammering for entertainment. And think about how this compares with Bach in the Baroque era. Was Bach's role to entertain the people, or did he have a different role as a composer?